Welcome. Welcome to InFocus Live, sponsored by Prevue Magazine and iMeet. Glad to have you with us today. We've got a neat program, really cutting edge. It's the keys to furthering your planning career with social media. Certainly a cutting edge topic today. We've got two great panelists, and I want to remind you, those of you who are new with us, and some of you I see have been with us before, you can see these programs again, all of them, on both Prevue Magazine's website, iMeet's website, YouTube, and also the audio on iTunes. So please revisit us or tell others to join us post-program. Let's meet our panel. We've got two great panelists, and they are Mike Malinchok. Mike is Vice President of iMeet, one of our co-sponsors for this particular series. Welcome, Mike. Would you say a few words about yourself and your background and iMeet?
Sure. Thanks very much, Virginia. I've been in the meetings and events industry for about 25 years, primarily in the hotel and travel space, and worked for McGettigan Partners and then Starsight. So I was in the event technology area. I joined iMeet about 4 years ago, and iMeet has blossomed into the largest niche social media site for the meeting and event planning industry. So it's kind of like Facebook or LinkedIn, but completely dedicated to the meeting space. And we've been around for a little over 4 years. We have 110,000 members that spans 175 countries. So we truly are a global community. And it's kind of fun as we talk a lot today about some of the things that social media now allows for in terms of networking and personal branding. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Glad you're with us. One quick question. How long did it take to get you from start to where you are today with iMeet?
Well, it's we're about 4.5 years old, so we'll be celebrating our 5th anniversary in a couple months. And it was the trajectory was a little bit slow at first, and I would say in the last probably 3 years the growth has just been exponential, as I think just in general social media has really been embraced by the business community.
Yeah, people are sort of getting it now. Congratulations. Let's meet our next panelist. She is Dee Mulligan. Dee is with the Mulligan Management Group. She's a CMP and a CMM. Welcome, Dee. Would you say a few words about yourself and your background and Mulligan Management?
Sure. Thanks, Virginia. I have been in the event industry since 1993, and I've planned probably in the neighborhood of 1,800 events since that time. I've worked with nonprofits and corporations on planning their primarily one-day events, and since about 2009, I've been active in social media and blogging. I'm a blogger for 4 organizations, and one of them is iMeet. I blog regularly for iMeet, and I also blog for Cvent and an organization out in California called AV Event Solutions. So I'm writing from a meeting perspective, meeting planner's perspective, and I keep on top of the trends that are going on in the industry. And I probably blog about 3 to 7 times per week in that space.
Great to have you with us, Dee, and a fabulous background for the topic today. Let's jump back to Mike. I just want to remind everyone to stay with us to the end because we have a $100 e-gift card that will be awarded. So stay with us and hopefully one of your names will be drawn. In fact, we know one will be. Let's come back to Mike, and we've got a poll first that I want to run. This poll will help us assess a little bit about who is in the audience and what your expertise is. So let's take a look. What level are you in the industry? Seasoned pro, intermediate, relatively new, or not voting? So let's see how we fall right now. It looks about 60% are seasoned pros. That's now 75%, and about 12% intermediate, and about 12% relatively new, which is very interesting. These are people who've been in the industry for a long time and certainly want to keep up to speed on the new opportunities within social media, the current, we've just changed. We're now at about 66.6% seasoned pro and about 22% intermediate and about 11% new. So we still have a large number who are, overwhelming number who are seasoned pros and want to keep on top of social media with the exponential growth and trajectory in this particular field. So Mike, would you sort of run through some of the slides that you've provided
Sure,
for
I'm happy
us?
to, and I'm glad to see the statistics because I think for those of you who have been in the industry for a while, I think a lot of this is going to ring very true. There's a term in social media called disruptive influence. And the idea behind the term is in any industry, whether it be the meetings industry, any kind of industry, there are forces that bring about change and become the trendsetters in the industry. When you think about the travel and the meetings industry, if you go back, I would say back to like around the 1980s, and a good way to identify who was the source of disruptive influence, you could go back to some of the earlier industry trade shows and see who were the speakers, who were the main sponsors of events, whose names seemed to be most prominent on the trade show floor, in the conferences, in the workshops, etc. So you go back in the early 80s and it was companies, back in the 80s and early 90s, it was companies who were talking about the power they had when they pooled their resources together. Companies like IBM, Westinghouse, Coopers and Lybrand, etc. They were the ones who were up on the dais talking about how they were managing their event and travel spend. You then move into the late 90s and it became the service providers. So as companies began to realize, geez, if we pool our resources together, we could have the influence that these service providers had. So all of a sudden, companies like American Express, or back then World Travel Partners, Carlson, they were the ones driving the content of the trade shows. They were the ones whose names were most prominently out there. Well, then you move into the early part of the century, and this is when all of a sudden the technology applications, before the big bust, right, before the big boom, you had companies like GetThere, ClickBooks, Starsight. All of a sudden they were beginning to tell us as an industry how to be and what to look at and what changes were going to take place. They were the disruptive influence. It did not take long, if you think about it, very, very quickly, the data consolidators became the ones. So this is where you moved into companies like Travelocity, Orbitz, Expedia, right, as the industry began to say, look, if we can bring together some consumer side of our business along with the business side, that's a home run. Now we get to today, and in the trade shows and the industry conferences now, the power and the influence really resides with the individual. And it's organizations and products like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and iMeet, all of which put the power, the disruptive influence, into the individual. So all of a sudden, you and I and Dee Dee and Virginia, we all have more power and more ability to disruptively influence than we ever did before. So it kind of speaks to what Dee Dee said. With her voice, her singular voice in the form of blogging and pushing that content out, she has a level of influence that 20 years ago any one individual could never have had. So it's kind of fun that we're at the space and the time where all of us now have a whole lot more influence than we ever did before. We did a couple of polls a couple of months ago that kind of speak to the fact that this medium, this social media medium, has now become a part of our standard business world. So we did a survey asking planners, how do you use social media to connect with other planners and share information? So the first thing we wanted to find out is do they? And then if the answer was yes, we were curious to see what are they using? What are the tools and what's the medium they're using? So clearly you can see a large percentage are using tools like LinkedIn, Facebook, and iMeet. Twitter's there, and it's kind of emerging, it's coming up, but these first three are the places where a lot of planners are going to network and share information. Okay, so that's kind of step one. We then went a little bit further, and what we wanted to find out was, where do planners go to get information? Now, in this case, we asked about suppliers, but the truth is we probably could have asked anything. But we want to know, where do you go for information about suppliers that I trust? And this is not surprising, but what it speaks to is why social media is really kind of grab and hold. So the number one place planners go for information on suppliers, it's peer reviews and recommendations. You know, it's not calling the salesperson. It's not necessarily some of the old traditional ways of looking at brochures or pamphlets, et cetera. It's going to peers and say, have you ever been there? Have you ever used that? So what we have found is this kind of data is very consistent with the spike that we've seen in the usage of social media now to kind of begin branching out. The last thing that we have done just recently, which really speaks directly to our topic today, is we work a lot with planners who are looking to grow their personal brand. So beyond just their company affiliation, their personal brand, and the use of social media now has become the number one way that planners are promoting their value, their skill set, and what they can offer a company. So some pretty cool stuff, we thought.
Great information, great slide, and some really interesting depth. And I wonder if there's a play with big data, which is the new trend and discussion. But before I get to that, let's drill down on the personal brand issue. What would be some of your recommendations, Mike? And Dee Dee, you're an expert in the field of blogging. I'd love to have your insights. So let's start with Dee Dee, and then I'll come back to you, Mike.
Well, I think the era of ghostwriting, where you write for a company or an organization and you're not branding yourself, is gone. So your blogs, your posts, your information is going to go with you. And Google's actually doing a lot in terms of authorship to make sure that that happens. And I think what's going to happen is, as we move forward throughout this decade, is people will become more known for themselves versus the company they work for. So it will be who you are, your integrity as a person, and what you write and the content that you provide that will determine whether or not you're going to be hired to blog or create social content calendar or whatever that is, or even plan a meeting. It's going to be more on the reputation of yourself versus the company that you come from. And I think Mike spoke to that very well. I mean, I'm an old IBMer, so I remember back in the 80s when I worked for IBM, how the company stood for so much versus the person, and I think we're going to see a reverse of that.
So instead of the IBM, we'll just use that as an example, the IBM shield that you hold out in front of you, it's your personal knight's shield, if you will, that you're taking out into the marketplace. Mike, you've done a lot of work in this field. Any thoughts and insights on nurturing, developing, and presenting your personal brand?
Yeah, kind of touching on something that Dee Dee said. I work with a lot of our members and clients, and there's two big questions that, as you're thinking of pushing out your personal brand and beginning to use social media to articulate it and promote it, I always tell folks, look, make sure you are crystal clear on the answer to two questions. Number one, who are you? You know, at your core, who are you? What is it that you do that nobody else on earth does? Or what is it that you are so passionate about that you want to define yourself as being? So who are you? And then what do you do? Specifically, what value do you bring into this arena? And if you're clear, if you're crystal clear on the answer to those two, the use of social media for personal branding just becomes a matter of consistency. Then be that. Then reflect that in everything you do, in every blog, in every tweet, in every message, in every group discussion you participate in. But it's kind of funny because even when I'm saying this, this is basically social etiquette 101, right? This is what we all did 25 years ago walking into our first cocktail party and figuring out how to network. You just get confident with, okay, who am I? What do I do? And all we're doing is we're using a different medium to project it. But I see a lot of folks, and I'll folks like my age. I'm 52, so I'm kind of an old man when it comes to this stuff. But I look at like my kids and the way they very naturally project who they are in the way they write, in what they do. So we could take a lesson from those young folks in this. But there's
Well, also it's a variant on marketing, basic
exactly,
marketing.
and that's when you think about like good marketing, the buzzword in marketing is consistent. Be who you are. Be who you are. Be who you are. And it's the same thing in this medium.
Consistency and repetition, both. It used to be, the tenet was you'd say something 7 times and people will finally get it. But because of the fragmentation in the industry and in all industries now, it sometimes takes more exposures to finally, quote, make that connection. But when it happens, it's much stronger.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a,
Can I
go ahead, Dee Dee.
About that? I just wanted to, but I want to say something about that, Virginia, because I think sometimes people have taken that a little bit too far.
Yes, you can take it too far.
You don't want to be too much out there. I like equate it to a first date. Okay, you go on a first date. You don't want to tell a person your whole life story. You want to give them enough information that they'll ask you out for a second date. So the same sort of thing with social media. You don't want to be too much information too many times. You don't want to appear like you're stalking your audience. So, but you do need to have a balance, just like anything else in life. You have to have balance.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say something very, very similar that I think a very common mistake people make is, I one time heard a speaker say, what social media does, it gives everybody a voice. But just because you can have a voice doesn't mean you should use it. And it was interesting because he was kind of drawing the conclusion, look, unless you really have something relevant to say, don't say it. Don't get out there and tweet or blog or just for the sake of blogging, because very, very quickly your audience will realize, you know what, that content's not that strong, and they'll ignore you. I think it's... I've watched. Dee Dee does an excellent job as she blogs for these different companies. She's done an excellent job of 2 things that I can see. Is number one, her voice is very consistent. You know what you're gonna when you see her name on something, because I'm following her now. I know the quality I'm going to get, so I'm more apt to tap into it. It may not be a subject I like or I'm interested, but okay, it's Dee Dee. There's something of value to see. So there's a consistent thread. But then I think the other thing too is it's that fine line that I think she dances very, very well of just enough to be of value, but not too much. And I think that's there's a little bit of an art form in that, I think.
Well, and also relevance. What are some of the other caveats in dealing with social media? If you want to be active in the social media field, I think there are a few things that might be helpful for people to know. Dee Dee?
I have 3, all right? I already touched on 1, moderation, okay? So don't, just because you can tweet 20 times a day, don't tweet 20 times a day, just like what Mike said. Make sure you're doing something of value. But the other thing that I want people to make sure they're setting is their privacy settings. So when I work with clients, I make sure that we go through their Facebook and their LinkedIn and that sort of thing, because identity theft is something that you should be concerned with and be careful with, and you don't want to have too much data out there on social. And then my third one, which I kind of laugh about, but everybody gets a big chuckle out, is don't post anything you wouldn't want your mother to see. So if you keep that in mind, that don't be up there, just because you're karaoke dancing up on the bar stool. Just don't post it, because you just want to be professional, even in your personal life. So those are kind of my 3 rules.
Mike, you were going to say something.
I am, continue to be a little bit shocked about this, but as fundamental as this sounds, I think it still needs to be drilled home. I think if you don't believe that every business contact you make checks you out on social media, you're wrong. They do, right? The minute someone hangs up the phone from you or you walk out of the meeting, they go look you up in LinkedIn, Facebook, iMeet. They go and do that. So the two big things that I talk, you've got to carve out time. First of all, put a professional quality picture on your profile. If you have what's called a blue head, right, which is just that graphic if there's in the absence of a photo. If you have a blue head right off the bat, what you're telling me is you're not current. And I don't even have to look at your skill set. If you don't have a professional business quality photo on your profile on LinkedIn or iMeet. Facebook is a little bit different, but on those two, and you're in this industry, what you say to me, and this may sound harsh, but you're not relevant, you're not current. You're not into it. So that's number one. And then I think the second thing, because this is what people do, they want to see your picture, and then they want to see how expansive is your network. How big is your network? If I just, I'll give an example. If I was interviewing a planner, let's say I had a project to do and I was interviewing a planner, and I went in and looked he or she up on LinkedIn or iMeet, and I saw no photo and I saw 3 friends or connections, I'm done. I'm done. Because again, it just sort of says to me, you don't recognize that whether you like it or not, this medium is a big part of the way we do business today. So I encourage everyone, put a picture up and spend the couple of hours to get your network. Now people can go to the other extreme, kind of as Dee Dee said, I always laugh when I see people who have 10,000 friends. I mean, really? They're friends? Come on. So, but you want to make it relevant enough. Like if I look at someone who's in that 300 to 500 person range, that to me makes sense. That says to me that these are good quality contacts. This person is connected and is going to be a valuable resource to me.
What about the use?
I would add a couple other things to what you
Go ahead,
said.
Dee Dee.
Okay, just a couple other quick things. But I agree with exactly what Mike said. Complete profile, including your photo. I would say if they're not even on LinkedIn, like I take their business card and I type in their name.
Yeah.
I'm done, because then where are you? Come on, why aren't you on LinkedIn? But the other thing that people need to make sure that they do, and I preach this all the time, is they need to make sure they're connected to their company. And you have to test that, because just by writing in the company name doesn't automatically connect you to the company. So, for example, on iMeet, if you miss the hyphen on iMeet, you won't be connected to iMeet. So you need to take the time and make sure that happens as well. Go ahead, Virginia.
What about video, YouTube, some of the other opportunities besides standard LinkedIn and Facebook? Any thoughts about use of those as a component of your social media branding plan or marketing plan?
So my philosophy is
either
if you're good at that, if you're comfortable with that and you show well in that medium, then by all means give it a shot. But look, here's the reality, and I've dabbled in it. I get nervous when a video camera's on me, and I'm not so sure it reflects the best in what I have to offer. And it depends on what I'm offering, right? I don't necessarily need to see a video of a professional event planner to know whether or not he or she is the caliber that I'm looking for. But if I'm looking to hire a speaker, well then absolutely I've got to kind of see that. But I know a lot of people are kind of jumping on that and pushing that, but I would be careful. It depends on who you are and what you do, and if it is a way to more accurately reflect that, do it. If it doesn't, and you're not that comfortable in it, I don't think you're in jeopardy if you don't do it.
What about if you have the authorization or the rights to show some of your work? In other words, an event or a meeting, or is that worth it? And let me remind those of us in the audience, those of you who are in participant mode all over the world. If you have questions or suggestions or ideas, please type them in and we'll feed those into the program. Mike, you were going to say.
I guess it depends. It depends on what you're trying to show. You can probably tell I'm a little bit hesitant on the topic because not everyone or everything shows well in a video format. So I would say just be careful. Don't do it just to say you've done it. Right. Don't do that.
Dee Dee,
well,
any
Virginia, the other thing is I agree with Mike 100%, but short, concise videos are the ones that are going to help, 2 minutes or less. And the other thing is they do help from an SEO standpoint. If you have a website you're trying to get people pointed at, YouTube does help, especially if you take the time to put your search words in as part of the video. And because Google owns YouTube and G+, you want to make sure that you have a YouTube profile and maybe have one video or strive to have a video by the end of the year. But I agree with Mike. Don't do it just to do it.
When we're thinking about social media, we're thinking electronic. What place do you see for what we would say sort of the old media, written works, and integrating those into the social media platforms? Any thoughts along those lines? What we used to call articles, or now we call perhaps blogs because they're spoken, but is there a place for integration of written word?
Yep. I'll take that
Dee Dee,
first.
go ahead.
Absolutely. I write articles for clients all the time, and what we do is there's a place for everything, and so what I tell people is Facebook is not equal to a blog, and a blog is not equal to an article. An article is 4 or 5 pages, maybe a little longer, describing something in particular. A blog is 300 to 500 words. So you have to, if you think about a blog being an executive summary of an article or something to that format, and Facebook being the first line of the executive summary, that's kind of an analogy that I would use. But people are, you talked about big data, people are thirsty for good information. And if you can produce it and promote it via social channels, so if you write an article and then promote it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all those, that's where people are going to reach it, see it, read it, and digest it. And they'll let you know if it's any good or not by how they retweet it, comments back, that sort of thing. But yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think the social media format,
Mike,
really gives anyone a much better opportunity to share that kind of stuff. To Dee Dee's point, you know, if you write a blog, you can attach a link to the digitized version of an article, a book, anything like that. So, and I still think that's important. You know, it's interesting. I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was very funny because I didn't anticipate this, but I was sitting around a conference table. There were about 10 other folks, and we were referencing certain articles, and everyone in the room was anxious to print it out and get a hard copy to look at. Right, and I was like, well, you all have your laptops, just pull them up, just open them up. And I think there's still that quality, and I don't believe this is restricted to a certain age, but I think there's still that quality. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what was the age group of the group?
But the ability to hold it, to touch it, to write on it, to kind of do whatever, to really kind of explore it and beat it up. But had we not read a compelling blog about it, that article would never have hit our radar screen. Never. So they kind of work hand in hand.
Good point. Very good example. Okay, let's take it even further. What about electronic books written by a planner or someone in the industry?
Yeah, now
Mike,
here's
you're
where I'm
smiling.
going to say I am completely old-fashioned about this because I like to touch and hold a book. I absolutely do. So personally, I don't get it. So, you know, whoever's watching this, don't judge me for that, but I like to touch the books. However, I have seen a number of very, very top quality, good ebooks written by event planners in this industry. And I have to say, just about everyone I meet now in this business has a Kindle or something like it. And I think I'm the anomaly here. I think more and more people are liking that. And the other thing too is ebooks, if you're someone who's a book writer, you want to, your personal brand, right? Let's say you do want to get your name out there. You can produce an ebook in a lot less time for a lot less cost, and you can get a lot more exposure with that ebook. So it's a great tool,
Big.
and it works. I saw one, actually, I think it came out this summer, and it was like really, really basic level event planning geared to administrative assistants. So it really, I mean, it went further than the fundamentals. It was real basic, and it's an ebook. And it was, in fact, I remember the ebook version was $1.99. So you know what, like who wouldn't want to grab that and read it? Why not? So.
Cheap. Right. Very inexpensive. You could even launch a chapter a month, and you have your sort of chapter of the month club. I mean, there's so many ways to do it, and also with the new technology and the confluence of what used to be a phone separate from a laptop, from a whatever, is now all being synergized into one or two pieces of hardware. It makes a big difference. Dee Dee, you had a comment.
I was just going to say I've written ebooks before, and a lot of times clients use them to gather email addresses. So you have to put in your email, and then you can download it. And then once you download it, you can print it or read it or whatever. I think there's a place for it. I think ebooks won't go away, just like articles and blog posts and that sort of thing. Just another opportunity for you to get your name out there and brand yourself and brand your organization.
We are all so busy. There's no question about that. How do you carve out and how much time do you devote to social media? Let's say in an average week, or you could even take it to a day. Dee Dee, I'm going to ask you this question first, and then I'll ask you the question, Mike.
Okay, so I equate social media to anything you have to learn the first time, riding a bike, driving a car. Think about those things that you did when you were younger. You didn't just get behind the wheel of a car and drive. It took you had to drive with somebody else, it took you lots of hours to get ready, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything became automatic. I think social media is exactly like that. You have to carve out the time to complete your profile, just like Mike said, the blue headshot and all that sort of thing. You need to do all that, and it's going to take a lot of time up front. And then once you're rolling, it really doesn't take that much time. I probably spend on my own social maybe 15, 20 minutes a day. That's it. And maybe less depending on the day. But I have to have something interesting to say. I'm not just going to put something on LinkedIn just for the sake of putting something on LinkedIn. But that's what I would say. It's going to probably be hours initially to get everything set up. And don't say that you have to do 8 hours on one day. You just do a little bit each time.
Right.
But it does take more time initially, and then once you get up and running, maybe 20, 30 minutes a day.
You're into maintenance and projection mode.
Well, it's
Mike.
probably a little bit unfair because I work for a social media company, so my answer should be 100%. But
you're in the industry. Right.
I would say that as it relates to my own personal branding, because in addition to my work, obviously I've got my own brand.
Right. That's what
I think Dee Dee said it very well. Up front, you really do. You just, and there's no getting around it. You've got to invest a good chunk of hours to get yourself set up, established, and moving. But what I'm finding too, though, it kind of goes in ebbs and flows. So some of the, and it's sort of like planting seeds, you know. So you'll push a blog out there, you'll do a tweet, you'll do some things, and some things fall flat, some things go nowhere. and something's really sparked some conversation. So there could be days where I'm an hour or 2 hours on social media, and there are other times when nothing, right? So it just kind of varies. But the thing too, and this is where I think we want to be careful, it can't be categorized into a certain number of hours, because it's almost like if I said to you, Virginia, well, how much time in the course of a day do you spend thinking? Right? It's just, social media is a fundamental part of what we now do, right? If you have a career and you're looking to further and expand it, it can't be a portioned out chunk. It's just an inherent part of what you do, right? Just like thinking, like that kind of
Right.
stuff. So.
Well, and you have
I
to
want to add
also allocate, you're going to do this versus that, because this will perceive it getting you further down the road in whatever your goal might be. So it's really an evaluation of where you want to spend your
Go ahead.
time. Dee Dee.
it's supposed to be, you know, when social first came out, and I think a lot of people forget this, is, and I try to always remember it, is social is conversational. So if you get comments, you're going to spend more time
Right.
than, like Mike said, it's going to go flat. But it's just amazing to me sometimes the things that I write, the conversations that get started, and I'll tell you, like, a topic right now is free versus fee Wi-Fi. That's just a huge topic right now, and planners are having a hard time getting their mind wrapped around it. And I've been blogging about it a lot, and it's a hot topic, and there's no real easy answer on it, but it's a good conversation starter and good conversation piece. So that's what people have to keep in mind. I mean, sometimes you'll walk into a room at a networking event and you won't connect with anyone, and so you'll leave early, and other times you'll be there for hours.
You know,
Same
kind of
thing with
touching on
social.
that.
Let's
Touching
take a
on that
moment.
is
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
kind of going to the other side of that comment is you also have to become savvy around when do you cut off a conversation. Because just like at a cocktail party in social media, there's those hangers-on that will keep engaging you in a conversation. So when you think about what you're doing in social media, always keep in mind, what do I want to get out of this, right? Is it I just simply want to grow my brand awareness? Do I want to get direct and concrete leads? What is it I'm looking for? Because I mean, I work with folks, and I'm sure you all know them, who spend like entire days in social media. And when you say, well, what'd you get out of it? Like, are you getting the business results you're looking for? And they don't know. So you got to be a little bit careful. Right?
See, that's absolutely,
I
and you
agree with
touched
that
on the
too.
bottom line issue. What is the ROI in effective use of, or I should say, in use of social media, and then how do you make it effective use of social media to reach your ROI? And that would be on a personal basis. Let's take a moment and go to the second poll, because we'll loop back into that when we see the results. What social media do you favor for use in projecting your own personal brand for business, for or in business? Oh, LinkedIn, 100%. Okay, now that we have that, let's talk a little bit about some of the nuances of LinkedIn. Are there any recommendations besides photo and so on that people should be aware of in making effective use of LinkedIn? We have a few on Facebook coming in, but mostly LinkedIn. LinkedIn has paid services available. They, of course, have the free service available. Any thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, I think,
Mike.
yeah, a couple
You want to
things.
start, Mike?
You know, I think 5 years ago, the only time people went on LinkedIn was if they were looking for a job. You know, and that was really the common belief that if someone's active on LinkedIn, man, they're looking, right? I think that has gone. I don't want to say it was a myth. I think it was the truth. But I think getting a current active profile up and running is what any smart business person does. So I think the stigma of being active on LinkedIn has kind of subsided a little bit. The couple things that I would say I see a lot of people make mistakes on in LinkedIn is You know, the importance of groups, you know, the groups that you associate with, you affiliate with. It's kind of that old adage, you're judged by the company you keep. So I'm always amazed at some of the bizarre conglomerations of groups that people will associate with on LinkedIn. Because, and here's where I'm coming from is, if I'm looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, so obviously I look at the picture, I look at their summary, I want to see how articulate they are. How do they know how to articulate who they are and what they do? I want to see if they're easy to contact, right? Is it easy for me to find an email or a phone number? If I have to search for your contact info, you lost me. I'm not doing it. And don't make me pay for the don't do that, right? So make it simple, put it in the summary. But I then go down, now this is just me, okay? So again, like it's like the ebook thing, but I don't really read recommendations because I kind of feel like you wouldn't ask someone who you didn't think was going to give a good recommendation. So I don't pay those too much attention. But I do look at the groups you belong to because I want to get to know the whole person. So what I would say is be very cautious when you're selecting your groups. They're going to say something about you. They're going to reveal either an avocation, a passion, something about you. Make sure it's what you want it to say about you, right? I was talking to one planner who very, very professional, great reputation, solid background, and she belonged to 3 micro-brewing beer producing groups. And I questioned her on that, and I said, look, I don't care, like that's what you want to do, but why are you putting that in? What do you want that to say about you professionally? It didn't connect. It caused more questions than, you know, that type of thing. So
Maybe she
there
had a
you go,
group
there
that
you go.
was microbreweries. Dee Dee, you had some comments.
Yeah.
I was trying
If
to
I
save
were
her.
to, I would spend a lot of time on your summary. Really spend a lot of time in your summary and make sure it have multiple people read it. Make sure it's complete. And also, you want to make sure it has some keyword searches in there. So remember, people are searching and Mike's right. I mean, people still have this stigma that LinkedIn is for finding a job. It's not for just finding a job. It's more than that. It's really what I call is TOMI, which is top of mind awareness. It's really what it's bringing your connections, top of mind awareness about you and who you are and what you do. And I agree totally with the groups. Just make sure it's very professional on all levels, but take time to make that summary. I also recommend people when they go to a networking event, grab those business cards, spend 15 minutes on LinkedIn, type in all those names, make those connections, because within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to remember who you are. If you try to make a connection 2 years from now, they're probably not going to remember you. So do those 2 things, the summary and the connections, and keep building your connections, but do it organically. Don't just type in every connection that you know and try to do 100 connections a day. Don't do that. Just
You know
do
what
it
else
as
I
they
see, and
come
this is a
about
pet peeve of
organically.
mine, is don't connect with someone you don't know. You know, like what I have found is once you hit a certain point, like with
Yes,
LinkedIn, I
I
found when you
agree.
get over 500, something magical happens, like you're a who's who for whatever reason. And I will get these requests to connect, and I'll send an email back. I don't know you. Where have we met? Please help me understand. Where have we met? And
Right.
people will be sometimes honest. Oh, well, we've never met. I just want to connect up. Well, no, that's not happening. No. So have integrity with your connections.
The other thing I want to say about groups, groups are great because there are a lot of the peer reviews are in groups, and iMeet has a group on LinkedIn too, which I joined. I just found it. I joined. But something needs to happen with groups. They need to get back to the pure way they used to be, which was somebody would put a question out there and there would be 15 planners that would answer those questions. But somewhere along the way in the last year, LinkedIn's allowed all these promotions to happen, and I
Yeah.
flag them all the time, but it's really turned off a lot of people on groups, and I hope LinkedIn will clear those up and we can start back to those online peer reviews, because that's important. That's why iMeet is so important, because it's truly an online community where we can get planners and suppliers together in a unbiased
Yeah, I was
value
going to say,
content way.
Well, it's
yeah, I was
much
just going
more
to say that
authentic.
this is where a niche social media
Go
community,
ahead.
in this case, iMeet for the planning community, the whole business model is very, very different, right? So the revenue stream, well, certainly for our company, is not in advertising in groups. So you got that pure community setting. And I think you're right. And I think that's also
Right.
where a lot of supplier members, whether it's in LinkedIn or wherever it is, they sometimes want to get more into a sales mode versus a conversation, and you just kind of have to weed that out.
Let's take a moment. We have a winner for our $100 e-gift card, and that is, a little drum roll, Rita Lassiter. Congratulations, Rita. Matt will get in touch with you and have fun with that $100 and enjoy it for sure. We're going to be wrapping up shortly, but I just want to remind you that you can see this program again and tell others about it and watch it on either the Prevue Magazine website, the iMeet website, YouTube, or iTunes for the audio only. And we're so glad you have been with us today. We've been talking with Dee Dee Mulligan and Mike Malinchok, and we've been talking about social media. Let's take one last moment and see if you had any last thoughts and suggestions for our seasoned pros, of which we have many in the audience today, on effective use of social media. Let me start with Dee Dee. Dee Dee?
Well, social media is not going to go away. It's not a fad. It's not something that's going to pass. But what will happen is the channels may change. So for example, Facebook might go away and something will replace it, or LinkedIn might go away and something will replace that. So the key is to become familiar with the social media platforms, get active with them, but realize they're kind of like a river, and they're going to ebb and flow, and you might have to jump on some other bandwagons. So, but they're all navigationally friendly, and you need to do it. And if you're not active, especially on LinkedIn, you need to get active on it now, because that's one of the greatest tools for professionals. And if you're not active on iMeet, you need to do that as well. That would be my 2 cents worth.
Yeah,
And
mine is just
Mike
real simple.
Malinchok.
Jump in, get doing it, because, and this is going to sound a little contradictory, it's also a very forgiving medium. You know, you can change your profile in an instant. You can, you know, alter or correct something. You know, if you put a message out there and now you can't necessarily retract it per se, but you can very quickly follow up with a rephrase, right? So I think a lot of folks that I work with they're afraid to jump in and just get in there and do it. As Dee Dee said, it's not going away. If you truly want to continue to grow and succeed, and for those who said they were pros, this is my belief that within 5 years we won't even be having this kind of conversation about it. This would be like us talking about the use of a phone in business. It's just a fundamental part of what we do. So the sooner you get in and have fun with it,
Right.
it actually is kind of fun.
I want to ask both of you a technology question. What is your favorite technology to use on the mobile arena? Is it a larger format smartphone? Is it a tablet? Is it a laptop? One of the hybrids? What do you like to use on the fly? And when you use it, do you engage in the social media? And how do you engage? Dee Dee?
I love my iPad, and I have an iPad and an iPhone, and I have a IBM laptop too. So, but I would say when I go out and meet with clients face to face, and I want to show them my work, there's nothing easier or better than to pull it up right on the iPad It doesn't take up much space. I can just put it there and they can see the work that I do, and we can navigate through different websites. So that would be my favorite. I'm also getting away from paper. So when I go to meetings, I bring my iPad and I take notes right there on the iPad, and I love it. For photos, though, I love my iPhone because you can just upload photos to whatever medium you want to right away. So Tumblr
Yeah, it's
or whatever it
transferable.
is, Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that the camera is in the phone. So, but those, yeah, those are my two ones. If I'm going to do something serious work-wise, I think there's a place for everything.
Yeah, I would say
Like,
the same thing.
And
I like the
Mike.
iPad because, you know, like if I'm walking around a trade show floor or if I'm with a client, it's just, you can just do so much. And, you know, I got fat fingers, so the iPhone is not easy to work with, but the iPad is crisp, it's professional, it's easy to pack. That's my favorite.
Well, with those last thoughts, I want to thank you both, Dee Dee and Mike, for joining us. It's been a fascinating discussion, great tips and insights. Hope to have you back. And again, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And thank you all for joining us. Hope you join us very soon for our next program of Prevue InFocus Live, co-sponsored by iMeet. Have a great day. Thank you.
thanks.